Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Westchester Talk Radio, produced by Shark Creative and made possible by our friends over at Entergy, Indian Point Energy Center, where they literally are helping keep the lights on and continue to support the community as they always have. And by the way, this morning we are with Feeding Westchester, the Vice President of Development, Matt Honeycutt. Good morning. It's good to see you, Matt. I just quickly did want to mention, I know since we talked about Entergy, they're one of our sponsors of the station, and I understand they made a nice donation recently. I believe a $20,000 donation to the cause. So I know, certainly that's appreciated. And we did want to take this moment this morning, Matt, to talk with you. My God, there's a lot going on, and I we'll just dive right in. I know, you're running on all cylinders. A little bit about you, Matt. I know you're a team leader, a fundraiser, an educator, a program director with experience building public-private partnerships in the arts, academia, and health and human service organizations. And you've been with Feeding Westchester for over a year now. I know I've had the pleasure of working with you and meeting you at several different functions. So it really is our pleasure to get a chance to speak with you today. And I want to give you an opportunity to let our listeners know just what's going on behind the scenes over there in Elmsford. How are you feeling? How are you doing, Matt? I mean, you must be exhausted.
It's been a different journey, right? And it's funny, all those things you just listed off, I'm actually getting to do all those things right now. Like my entire career has kind of crashed into these last few months, which I guess is a good thing, a roundabout way. But listen, we have a fantastic team of people, and from the very onset, they keep coming back to work every day. They get in the trucks every day. They move the food every day. We've been able to source product from all over the place. We're pulling fresh produce out of Hunts Point by the tens of thousands of pounds at this point, and it's tiring, but it's actually very rewarding and somewhat therapeutic, given all that's going on, to actually be able to be doing something that's actually helping people. And I think if you asked anybody on our team, they have that same sentiment. They're able to get out there and help. Same type thing that you're doing. You take every tool you got. You have to pivot on how you use it, obviously, but then you get out there and you start fighting the fight as best you can.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Matt. And look, you guys, you've had a lot of work to do even before the crisis, and suddenly you're in the middle of this pandemic, and you were forced to mobilize like never before, right? What can you say about how you and your agencies have prepared for this, and how you responded to it?
So we didn't see it coming at this level, but we knew something was going to hit us sooner than later. So we started about 2 weeks before we actually got to that point of the containment in New Rochelle, pushing as much product out as we could to our agencies, asking them to send more food home with people each time they came by their pantry or their soup kitchen. So we were trying to get ahead of it, because back then the assumption was it was a 2-week lockdown if you got sick and you were going to need food in your house. We weren't sure what it was going to look like to get food to you after the fact, and there were all these different variables. So we thought, okay, let's just get as much out as we can. And then I guess it was March the 12th was the containment day, and that kind of shifted us in a totally different gear. So the first need was to meet the governor's request to get food packed in for those children and their families once the schools closed. So we had that knocked out in a day. We had a plan built for that. We had a system for that. We were blessed to have him send in the National Guard, and they're still there, correct? There. Yeah, and it sounds like we have them till at least June 1st. So to everybody listening who's been calling and begging for a chance to come help and volunteer, we're getting that plan together right now. And as soon as the Guard moves out, we will be calling folks to come in and help us. So from there, Andrew, it really was the type situation where we just had to go press conference to press conference to figure out what the rules were going to be and what was going to happen next, and how do you get food out to people now that they've gone from 50 people can gather to 10 people can gather to no one can gather, where our most efficient system is to pull up with a truck, set up a farmer's market, for lack of a better descriptor, and it's open for 3 hours, and families come and go as they need to, and they get the food they want, and they walk away, they drive away. Now we had to shift to a, no, you can't touch the food. No, you can't pick your own. I'll have to pack it for you, and we have to put it in the trunk of your car, or we have to hand it to you one person at a time, and then you have to walk away before the next person can come up. So we're constantly changing how we do this pretty much daily for those first few weeks. Now I think we're in that place where we know what the most efficient way is for this. We have partners on the ground from Peekskill and Ossining to Mount Vernon, Mount Kisco, North Salem, Port Chester, Yonkers, White Plains, everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Mayors have called and said, hey, we have a team together. We're ready. Can you just get us the food? And we're absolutely. So we're sending out pallets now, bulk pallets, usually anywhere from 4 to 8, let's say. 4 are mixed goods. It's pasta, it's rice, it's beans. The other 4 are fresh produce. And those go up to, let's say, Peekskill. They get dropped there. There's a team there that sorts those out, packs them into bags, and has a time set up for folks to drive through and pick up food from them. We're doing the same thing in North Salem with their school system and with their OEM team there. They're feeding seniors. They're feeding children. The county and us are starting to work together on seniors and homebound and families that are quarantined, and how do we get food to them. So there's a full army all over the county right now, hard at work getting food to people.
I want to, first of all, I want to remind our listeners, it's Westchester Talk Radio. This is Isolation Therapy, episode 18, with the Vice President of Development at Feeding Westchester, Matt Honeycutt. Matt, also before the pandemic, you estimated that there's maybe 1 in 5 people that are hungry. And now so many more people are suffering and are out of work. What could you say about this? I think I was talking yesterday. There's probably about 1 million people that live in Westchester, right?
Right.
And is it true that it's about 500,000 people that you feel you're seeing that have the need? I mean, that just blows my mind.
That is our best guess right now, pulling through data and just taking the pounds going out the door. So if you look back to last March, we distributed somewhere around 820,000 pounds of food. This March, just from that pandemic point through, we did 1.4, almost 1.5 million pounds of food. So we almost doubled the output. April was right at 2 million pounds of food. May is on track to be 2 million pounds of food. So we only do around 10 over the whole year. So that much more food going out, and none of it's being wasted. We sent 25,000 pounds to North Salem a week ago and came back with 100 pounds of pallets. I mean, it all goes home with people. So right now we estimate that it's probably somewhere in that 500,000 range. And that's not a permanent number, but it's not going to go back down to 200,000. It might go back down to 400,000, depending on how many people have jobs waiting for them when this lifts. But if you think about all the people that they get paid by the hour, who aren't getting paid at all, and multiply that by every restaurant, every hotel, every hospitality business in this county, and your food is such a big part of this county. Restaurants are such a big part of this county, and all that's closed. And so that's who's in our line, and it's a lot of people that have never been there before. It's their very first time ever needing to use a food bank or a soup kitchen or a food pantry, and frankly, they don't know how. So we've been helping them walk through that journey and get them plugged into the right places and make sure that they have what they need until hopefully they can get back on their feet soon.
It's unbelievable to think about all of these changes and how you've had to make the pivot to do what you need to do to get things done, and think about all the extra people that are coming to you now. But still, there are people that they want to help. Right. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
I mean, as challenging as things are, it's so wonderful to see how many people want to come forward. And I'll tell you right now, certainly we want to remind people how they can help. What can they do? Someone who's listening to this now might say, how do I get food to you, or how do I get donations to you? What can they do to help? Let's talk a little bit about the volunteers. I know that that's been a challenge for you also. How is the landscape change with respect to volunteers? And if there are people out there that want to help, how can they do that?
So we closed our space to outside volunteers once we had the National Guard in, and we did that for a couple reasons. We were able to keep the Guard together. They stay in the same housing. It's been the same crew by and large the entire time with us. They get tested where they are. We take everyone's temperature before they come in the building. We do all those things as well. We've set up an outside space with a tent that we can do some work under later as we get nicer weather. After the snow this weekend, we get nicer weather.
Go figure.
That. I put my garden in last week. That was a bad plan. So I got to solve for that today. But volunteers are helping on the ground within the cities where they live right now. And they're working with the mayor's offices there. They're working with churches there, and they're helping sort and distribute food. We will be bringing people back into the warehouse in some form after the Guard leaves, which right now looks like it's that first part of June. So we've started to put our plan together as to how many people we can have in there, how we're going to space them. We have masks, we have gloves, we always have aprons and all those different things. Again, we'll be taking everybody's temperature. We'll be having them wear masks. We will move some things around, so we get the hand washing station as one of the very first things that they touch. So all those things will help us bring people back in, and we'll start taking those calls shortly. The other need that we'll have is to put more product out into the towns, especially in the summertime when it's warmer and you can be out a little bit longer and a little bit later. So right now what we're trying to do is figure out how to double that output through at least Labor Day. And we have a plan in the works right now that takes fresh produce and sets up again those farmers markets, so we can take out food in bulk that way. Food drives is a very interesting thing right now. So we have maybe 10 calls a day, it seems, people wanting to donate food. And so what we've told them to do, if they want to, is if they have extra in their pantry right now and they'd like to drop that off, that's great. We have a bin out front of the building. They can drop food in there. It's touchless, no interaction. We can take it in, sort it, get it packed, get it out to people. What we don't want to do right now is do a food drive and have people go to Stop and Shop, Target, ShopRite, and clean out a full shelf of product and then bring it to us. All that does is force someone who has just enough money to go shop to not be able to buy anything because it's not there. And
that's a little counterproductive.
Yeah, and there's just so much panic buying happening every time some headline comes out about the supply chain that it's forcing that bulk panic buying. So what we're hoping we're able to do is get through this last phase of that anxiety, get to early summer, and we can start doing food drives. And literally, they're going to be food drives. Just as folks drive through to get food, we're going to be asking people to drive through to drop off food. And we'll have a set time frame for that. And we'll work with our landlord to make sure that's going to work. And we'll have to work with local authorities to make sure we can manage that. We've actually set up an online system where you can sign up with us to be notified when food is available and where it is. And you sign up by time slot. So that has kept us from having those long lines of cars that you see in Texas and Pennsylvania and other parts of the country, where folks sit for hours in their car waiting for food and then they end up running out. We're able to stagger this, do maybe 50 to 75 cars in an hour. No one has to sit for a long time. We can manage how much product. We'll probably reverse that and use that also as part of our food drop-off system going forward. But again, who knows what the CDC guidelines are going to be in June, right? So that all plays into our planning nonstop.
Yeah. Matt, look, we could talk all day about putting out some content here. I mean, I can't think of a greater cause. Your mission is always to end hunger in Westchester County. And of course, now more than ever, there is a need. So, I ask people to go to feedingwestchester.org find out how you can help, do what you can in this time of need greater than ever. Matt Honeycutt, the Vice President of Development at Feeding Westchester. It really has been a pleasure speaking with you. We'll check in with you regularly, see what else we can do to help you. I also want to remind our listeners, we have some other people who have helped you in the past, like Lapolis Electric, our friends over at Hightower Westchester. Little shout out to those guys. I know that they've been in the building before and have done some things to help along the way. We also want to say hello and a little shout out to our friends at White Plains Hospital who are on the front lines and keeping up the good work there. Matt, always a pleasure. This has been Isolation Therapy, episode 18. You're listening to Westchester Talk Radio, which is produced by Shark Creative, and we will be back with more Isolation Therapy. Take care.
We are Feeding Westchester. We efficiently source food and invest in an infrastructure like freezers, refrigerators, and trucks so that our agency partners don't have to, freeing them to focus on serving our hungry neighbors. We safely recover nutritious food that would otherwise go to waste. Thanks to our infrastructure and business relationships, we recover millions of pounds of food destined for landfills. We have a commitment to nutritious food. We are driven by the belief that access to healthy food is a basic right for all people. Feeding Westchester ensures the distribution of a healthy variety of options, like fresh produce, dairy, meat and poultry, and whole grains. We are the county's largest hunger relief organization, responsible for 95% of all food distributed throughout Westchester. We tackle hunger from all angles, by providing food to meet immediate needs, education, and other resources to provide increased stability for the future. We have been serving Westchester for over 30 years, starting in 1988. We would like to thank our sponsors and partners for their continued support, and may everyone stay safe and healthy during this global pandemic.